country without breaking up the banks, without separating proprietary trading from banking deposits, and without creating transparent markets for credit derivatives. But if you're a bank, you can still go to the Federal Reserve and then perpetrate a little high-frequency trading, do some credit card lending, and enjoy some uncollateralized derivatives trading, and yes, the government will bail you out. And they call that reform. With that said, yesterday's Super Senate Tuesday results, a wake-up call for so many incumbent politicians in this country on both sides of the aisle, and the cloture vote I was just referring to voted down, only 57 yay votes, 60 necessary, so they'll try again tomorrow. As we're joined now from Capitol Hill by Republican Senator from Oklahoma, Tom Coburn. Senator Coburn, I understand you voted against cloture on financial regulation. Let's start with the breaking news. Why?
Well, we're not fixing the problem, Dylan. You've been talking about it today. Where's the source of the problem? The Congress is the source. We set up a system to take advantage of people who didn't have assets and sell them things that they couldn't pay for. Then we didn't oversight all the things that we set up to allow that to be securitized, and we actually created the problem. This bill is a nightmare in terms of really addressing the real disease that plagues us. And, you know, when you have J.P. Morgan and Citibank and Goldman Sachs liking this bill, you ought to be real worried about this bill.
Is it ultimately the following, that the politicians are so fearful to close the credit casino that is driving our economy, and they feel like even if they don't like the credit casino, they don't know what the alternative is, so they basically just kick the can down the road?
No, look, there are some worries. One is we want to fix what's wrong in the financial system, but we don't want it to move offshore. That's number one. So that's some of the debate about the derivatives side of it. We need more transparency, and there's no question for it. You know, I voted for the Kaufman Amendment that would pretty well separate a lot of these things and get us back to a more stable fund. You know, the financial picture that we're getting ready to face over the next 3 or 4 years, we need to have a stable financial system in this country, and we need to get this worked through. Yeah. There's another thing that your listeners ought to be very worried about in this bill, and that's the consumer protection side of it. Not that we shouldn't do consumer protection, but this thing has an unlimited amount of money with no board overseeing it, and they have the ability under this bill to look at everybody's financial statements without you ever knowing it.
It's unbelievable.
So there's no consumer protection. There's big government being able to look at the very most personal aspects of your own financial health without you knowing it and without your permission. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, and which brings me to my next portion of this conversation, which is the primaries yesterday. The Rand Paul a victory against a GOP incumbent. The incredible run Bill Halter had against a status quo Democrat in the form of Blanche Lincoln. We all have seen the data. Senator, I want to bring into the conversation former Vermont Governor Howard Dean to get both of your perspectives on this, but to the extent to which the people are dissatisfied with the perceived fairness of the system, Governor, whether it was with the health care debate and what we all witnessed there and the conflicts and all the rest of it, or what we're seeing now with bank reform, how much is what we're seeing in the primaries related?
I disagree with Senator Coburn. I think there's going to be hell to pay if the Republicans keep filibustering this bill, and I hope they do, because it makes it a lot easier for us. What you saw yesterday was both sides in trouble. This is not a story about Democrats being in trouble. This is a story about people being sick and tired of what's going on in Washington. The people in Washington are the problem, and this bill failing on cloture is exactly an example of that. I'm all in favor of the Kaufman Amendment. I'm delighted that Tom Coburn voted for it, but you can't pass the bill unless you stop filibustering it.
Well, again, how do you respond to that, Senator Coburn? Because I suspect actually your tendency is to agree with a lot of the things that just came out of the governor's mouth, not necessarily about the Republicans and the filibuster, but about the dysfunction being in D.C.
Well, if the filibuster continues, we didn't continue. We only have 41 votes, and we lost several on our side. So the Democrats know this is not a good bill. It doesn't solve the problem. I agree we need to fix it, but to say you fixed it and not fix it is more of the same old crap, pardon my word, coming from Washington.
I agree with that, except I'd like to see if you had 5 more Republicans voting for this thing, that would have been the solved the problem. So you can't really say this isn't the Republicans blocking the bill. Now, I will agree, there are Democrats in there who are shilling for the banks. There's no question about that. And we need a derivative transparency in the derivative trading market. I agree with Senator Coburn on that. But you can't say just because 4 or 5 Republicans crossed over that the Republicans aren't blocking the bill.
Well, no,
let's split this 50-50 will pass the bill.
Let me make this point. Let me make this point. It's not about blocking the bill. It's about getting a bill that's going to solve the problem. I don't care what anybody says about filibuster, non-filibuster, Republican or Democrat. If this bill goes out of here and does what it's designed to do right now, it won't fix the problem. And we ought to be proud that we're not letting it go through until it does fix the problem. So you can play the political game, but the game doesn't count anymore because Americans are fed up with both sides.
Question to both of you, because I think you're obviously I agree with that assessment. I'll ask you first, Governor. Do politicians who follow status quo Republican or status quo Democratic leadership at this point on issues like bank reform do so at their own peril? Absolutely. In the context of what happened last night?
One of the benefits of having this Arkansas race go to the runoff is that Blanche Lincoln, who has a good amendment on derivatives, that's going to have to stay in there, because if they pull it out of there, she's going to be really tagged with being a Wall Street Democrat, and that's not what's going to win primaries.
Senator Coburn, I want to play a comment from Dick Armey that he made over at FreedomWorks after the Rand Paul victory. Or I guess it's a full screen. I'll read you the quote he made after the Rand Paul victory. This is, again, Dick Armey saying, voters have to be able to trust the candidates. What's the first thing you know with a high degree of confidence with Rand Paul? He's not going to go with the establishment. Rand Paul very critical of Mitch McConnell earlier. This is my favorite line, Senator Coburn. I feel that it was made for you. He says, he's not going to get Potomac fever, which is something that you've talked about at great length, that the Washington system demands the corruption effectively of the new politicians in order to function. Are we kidding ourselves with whatever there is to fear here if we don't come up with a new deal for incoming politicians for systematic change? Senator Coburn.
Well, the thing that's good about Rand Paul is he's never held an elective office. He comes out of the private sector. The country's been very good to him. He's been a professional. He's going to come up here with one goal in mind. How do we fix the problems in front of this country, whether it's Republican or Democrat leadership, and how do you do that to secure the future for our kids and our grandkids? He doesn't care what the Republicans think of him. He's proven that by running against the ordained candidate, much like I did in my Senate primary. Yeah. I ran against the Republican ordained candidate. The fact is we got to fix the problems in front of us, and we need people that are willing to give up their jobs to do that rather than to not do it to keep their jobs.
Do you think either party or one party or the other, Governor Dean, is more able to adapt to this new reality, or does one understand it better than the other?
I think the Democrats are going to be the right people. I actually don't think we're going to see Rand Paul in the Senate. I think we're going to see Jack Conway. I think we're going to see Tommy Sowers in Joanne Emerson's district. She's out interviewing for a job as the head of the credit union at $1 million a year, and she's still a sitting congresswoman. This kind of stuff has got to stop. And I agree with Senator Coburn on some of this stuff, but I just want to make sure that we really do get a bill passed, and because there's an awful lot of Republicans that are out there filibustering this bill because they're in bed with the banks and the insurance companies, and we saw that in the health care bill too.
But then again, there's an awful lot of Democrats who are wolves in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, there are. So, not as many, though. Not as many.
Well, luckily technology gives us the wolf in sheep's clothing detector, Senator Coburn. I'm selling it for $1.99 on eBay. You were going to say quickly, Senator.
Well, I just think that's the kind of comments that the American people don't want us to. It's not about tit for tat or Democrats or Republican. That's exactly what they don't want to hear anymore. They don't care what party we're in. What they want is the future secured for their kids, and we're not doing it. And this bill doesn't do it. This bill is a farce because it's exactly what the big banks want. Now, why would we pass a bill that's exactly what they want, that ensures they're never going to go away and allows them to continue to do the things they've been doing that helped us get into this? I'll make the last point, Dylan. Congress got us into this, and Congress is trying to push it off onto everybody else using populism.
That is absolute nonsense. George Bush got us into this with ridiculous, complete lack of regulation. It is absolutely true.
The laws were passed.
Chris Cox had no attention whatsoever to what was going on
I'm not
Wall
going to disagree with you on Chris Cox or any of that, but I can't allow the omission of President's Working Group in Financial Markets, Bob Rubin, Larry Summers, Arthur Levitt, Brooks Lee Bourne, and Bill Clinton's office saying, what do you say we go with Commodity Futures Modernization Act, no capital required, and the political agenda toward housing from both parties because it was politically expedient, which you are as aware of that as I am.
I agree with that. I think there was a lot of mistakes made on both sides, but the fact of the matter is we had 8 years to fix this. It didn't get fixed.
I get it.
Now we need to pass this financial bill, get it on the floor, start amending it. it. Then we'll see where the chips lay. Look, I'll tell you one thing. I'll be out against any Democrat that doesn't vote for a really strong bill.
We appreciate that. And I think Senator Coburn appreciates it too. Listen, I've gone over, you've gone over, you've gone over. We're done. But it was worth it across the board. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Senator. We're taking a break. We're back here. Thank you, Senator. We're back after this.